So Russ, thanks for having us on your site. This is Guillermo Mash. We're down here at 14 Steps Forward. Is that the name, Russ?
14 Forward. It's here on 14th Street in Marysville. We call it 14 Forward. It helps people to move forward.
Thanks for having us. And I have Bob Trausch from Chico Housing Action Team with us, and we're going to ask you some questions about the whole process and the wonderful work you're doing here.
Well, that is the first question, actually. What was the impetus to actually put this together on a county-wide level? Because I'm assuming this is county land that we're on, and so you're donating, the county is donating this land to get a number of people out of homelessness. What was the impetus that started that movement?
Well, about a year and a half ago, we started seeing a massive increase in the number of homeless moving into our river bottoms, and they pretty much surround the city of Marysville along the Yuba and Feather rivers. And at first it was kind of noticeable, but then it became very noticeable to the point that people were pouring in. The trash piles and the debris piles were really happening along our river edges, and it became an environmental issue, but also became a very human issue because our health officer looked down there and said very serious concerns about the health of the folks living there, and we knew we had to address it. At first, of course, the first thought some people say is just clear out the homeless camps, but we knew that wasn't the straight option, that we needed to get the services out in front, get options out in front of these folks, so we're not just kicking them out to go to the next community to have the same thing happen to them again and again.
Mm-hmm. So you work for the county, Russ? What's your job? What do you do here?
I work for Yuba County. I'm actually the public information officer. I also do legislative work, so we've been tracking a lot of legislation, a lot of available services out there in terms of helping with
HUD money and other
exactly.
funds available.
Any funds we can get available. A lot of that happens, of course, through our public health and such. So they do a lot of searching for these funds, and they're finding things to help people get permanent housing. So this is only temporary housing, what you see here.
So this is temporary. This is not housing first model right here. This is just temporary housing. Do you have restrictions as to how long people can be here?
So when people come in, they can stay up to 3 weeks to start with, and then it could be renewed up to 3 times. So that's up to 84 days. So you're looking at a stay here of 3 weeks, up to 84 days, and during that time they have to show that they're trying to get services, they're trying to get help with any kind of addiction problems they have, they're trying to recover their documents. They had to be moving forward, and during that time they had to be moving towards permanent housing.
So I'm assuming that you're helping them, because many times when you're homeless, you can't really get to your meetings, you miss meetings, you're sick, you're in the hospital. So I'm assuming that the county is also helping people to achieve their goals.
And that's the point. We realized that in order for this to work, the services had to be brought to them. If we expect them to go out and find those services, it wouldn't really work for them. It's hard for them. So right now, there's actually one larger building here on this property. There are 20 small units, the shelters, and then the one larger building, and that's where people can go and get their services. We actually schedule throughout the week. You'll have people there in public health helping with health issues, people helping with addiction issues, mental health issues, finding paperwork, finding their ID documents. So these things are all brought to them, and to help these people work through these processes that everybody needs to go through to get towards permanent homes.
So are you helping to get people on SSI if they seem to be qualified for SSIs, and if they need to go to other meetings, you have transportation facilities available to get that service?
Absolutely. Even before we put up these houses, we had assessment teams from our public health down in the river bottoms, talking to folks, finding out what are your needs, what are your sources of income currently, because everybody has some source of income. And then we say, well, there are other possibilities, because we had veterans down there who had lost their documents years ago, and so part of that is they have some income coming in, but if we can work with them and recover some of those lost documents, they can actually get some of their veterans money available for future housing. So we are working with them on that.
So is this kind of an invite process? Like San Francisco, they have a navigation center where the outreach teams kind of pick and choose. I shouldn't say pick and choose. They go out and they find the right candidates. Is that what's going on here, or you just show up? What's the process? How do people get in?
The only qualification is to be homeless, and we are kind of working slowly through these homeless encampments. We're not taking them all out at once. We're taking sections out as we move along and giving these people the options for services, and we give them a menu. We don't say you have to come here to this one. Salvation Army has programs. Hands of Hope has. There are programs out there to really help people in different ways. If people have families with children, there are already lots of programs, and we can get them right into those services. It's those single folks.
So the county has come up with money, you say, for a homeless advocate, and how did that work out? At what point did you hire that advocate?
Well, we hired a gentleman named Scott Thurman. He's a advocate for homeless issues, and he's a consultant. And so we brought him in. At first, the first thought was to go in and just clean out the camps. But we had to really back up ourselves. That's just a reactive thing. It doesn't really help anybody. So we talked to this guy. We brought him in, first talked to him, and then we hired him, because he actually helped us understand if you don't get services out in front first, before you even start looking at things like this 14 Forward project, then you're not going to be helping anybody. And so we had to look at the going down doing the assessments. Our teams went down there and talked to scores of people, finding out who they are, what their situation is. Are they, what kind of addictions they have, or perhaps what kind of money problems they have, what got them there in the first place, how can we help them, and then we develop the services and line those up. And then 14 Forward came
and
along.
you keep using the term 14 Forward. What exactly do you mean by 14 Forward? Because I understood that you're going to have 20 units here.
And the only reason it's called 14 Forward is because right behind us here is 14th Street in Marysville. Mm-hmm. So on 14th Street in Marysville, there's a piece of property that was owned by the county in the city of Marysville, California. And so we put the 20 units here, and they are Tough Sheds. We actually work with local organizations, Home Depot and Tough Shed, their vendor. They work together actually to provide discounts and actually design these things. So if you look at these Tough Sheds, they're 8 feet wide by 14 feet long. There's no electricity, there's no plumbing. But what it is, they cut 2 windows in the front and a window in the back. So there's a lot of airflow. They have fans in there, battery-operated fans. They have battery-operated lights. And we got these special lights. You can crank them so you can plug in your phones and charge them. These are things we were told, you got to do that. It's kind of like the pets. We were told that if we said no pets, people won't show up. And we didn't realize that. We did get down to the point where we said you can have 1 pet. And so we actually, at one end of here, we actually have a kennel back in the corner of all this. Mm-hmm. There's a kennel here for the larger dogs. But for those that want it, we also got the smaller kennels that can go on the front porch. No animals inside, but they can have their dogs or cats, whatever, right there with them the entire time.
So are these units insulated?
They are deeply insulated.
Awesome.
As a matter of fact, Habitat for Humanity came here. They did the building on the inside. They insulated them. They built the bed frames, and we brought in the special mattresses for everybody.
So you brought in Habitat as well. So you're bringing in quite a few different organizations to work in conjunction with you to create this.
And that's what our advocate that we brought in did, our consultant. He actually helped work with us to identify everybody around here that was a significant player already for years. You're talking about the mission behind us, 40 years doing good work here. Mm-hmm. We had to talk to them because they know what they're doing, and we didn't. And we had to talk to Habitat. We had to talk for Hands of Hope, all those folks, and Salvation Army, a big player in this. And they actually helped us kind of form up how we put this all together.
So you're about 45 days in, 50 days in? How many days you guys been doing this?
Just over a month now, about more like 40, 45 days. You're correct right now. And we see this going on for a while. This could be years. And this will be here for future services because the homeless issue is not going away.
How many people have been housed through the process so far?
You're seeing the first group, and right now there are about 38, and with a huge waiting list. And that's part of the problem we're dealing with. But then again, after a while, we're starting to see people actually get jobs already who have been here. And they're the ones that are slightly be moving over the next few days to permanent housing. So we're starting to see things come together the way that it was sort of envisioned.
Have you had anyone that's been housed through the process? I mean, how many folks have actually physically come through your process in 45 days and found housing?
There are a couple people that are right now being moved into permanent housing, and more in line for that. The housing is available now. We have a lot of low-cost housing, and with the income, we're able to help these people pull together. And some of them, in terms, only a handful so far, but getting jobs. So they're able to get the jobs also along with their income. We're able to get that permanent housing going.
Have you secured any housing stock through Section 8 or some property owners? I mean, do you have certain places that have said, hey, let's do this thing?
Yeah, we actually have identified, there are actually a good number of them off here in Yuba County, off the edge of Marysville and out into the county itself that have that designation of low-cost housing that you can get the Section 8 and other programs assigned to help these people get into them for the subsidized housing.
Looking forward, this is, like you say, is temporary housing for people. We know under Housing First, we're asking, the government's saying if you want money, you have to house people, you have to have services, follow-up. What are you looking at forward from here? Because we know that people have less money now. There's more part-time jobs. Are you looking at creating a housing project like we see many parts of the country are doing now with smaller homes where they have community centers, where the people are supported, the same type of services you're offering here locally, but have a more permanent structure to it?
We are looking at being flexible in that sense, only because we know that right now we have enough of a opening in terms of housing ahead of us where we can actually move people into. You're right, at some point we don't know what's going to be there, but we have to keep an eye on that so that we can figure out what's next. Right now, in doing this, it's actually opening more doors for us in terms of working with the federal government and such to get more grants to do more things. Once we get this going, we're finding out those doors are opening. That's a big deal.
So you're saying you have enough housing in the market right now that is not occupied to move people in, which is where I come from, Chico. That's not the case.
And unfortunately, part of that is helped by the fact that a lot of people you offer services to don't come here. We get a handful of the people that we displaced essentially already because they don't want to be a part of that. And now our thing is you can't be in Yuba County and just say you're just going to be homeless. you have to take advantage of these services because our river bottoms really suffer. I mean, very much suffer. The garbage was immense down there. I've been down in the river bottoms after an encampment was cleared out, and it was horrible. And it used to be, when I first moved here 30 years ago, people would walk down there, they'd walk along the rivers all the time, and people stopped doing that many years ago.
Well, that's also, an indication of the incredible need we have right now because of the growing homeless, because of what's happened in our society.
And they get used to that lifestyle, and I understand that. I understand the idea of freedom, but there are, if you're able to put a little more structure in your life, there are opportunities, and that's what this does. People had a hard time here. The first day we opened, we had 11 people. On a Friday, by Monday there were 2 left. But then they started coming back again, and now they're starting to create that sense of community. And there are still some that kind of fight the idea of moving forward, but they're more embracing it. And it's good. I think people need to get used to the idea. This is actually a very fresh new concept in this area.
But what I've seen, Russ, in my travels throughout Northern California, and Bob and I talked a lot on the way down about this thing called hope. I mean, these guys are pretty good at math and stuff. They kind of do the math going, there's 300 of us and there's this many of these. So a lot of people kind of give up hope, and some of these people have been living in the river bottoms 10, 20 years, and maybe you're not the first guy that's come by saying, here's something that we can help you with.
No, because, like I say, you've had the mission, you've had the Salvation Armies and such out there doing a lot of good work and helping people get out of those situations. There's a lot of temporary interim housing around here available through other programs. But if we were going to go through and start cleaning up our river sides, we needed more places to stay. These are emergency shelters, but they are safe. They're helping people. And you're right, there is the problem of kind of getting people past that mindset. We had the people down there for a long time, our health workers, talking to people because we needed to kind of get their mindset changed a little bit. And it was a long process. And the people that came here are the ones that kind of broke out of that fear that they have, understandable fear, to try something new, because this is totally different for them. And it's scary. It's scary for them. It's scary for us.
So what's your policy in regards to drug use or alcohol use? What's your policy on that?
And like you say, the mission has like a zero drug and alcohol thing. While we are bringing the services here, we understand that it's not going to change overnight. You cannot do drugs or alcohol here on this campus. Okay, just like if you have visitors, you can't have visitors on the campus, but you can step 5 feet outside the gate and visit with people. We don't want to see any kind of drug use around here, even through the gate. So if you do it, it's got to be far away from us. We understand it will happen, but our hope is they'll take advantage of those counseling services that we offer and really strive to get beyond those addictions, which are not. That's one of the toughest things they're facing.
So you would say this is a harm reduction site? Is there drug testing that goes on, or?
There is no drug testing as a part of this right now. So.
And I think what Will said is really important, that if you give people hope and follow-up services, that really can change the matrix. It can really change the reintegration of people. I mean, people out there, even though they're the other services, you got the mission and all that, but it didn't really move them into housing. It really didn't move them into having the services necessary for whatever their addiction problems, with mental illness, whatever it is. Now you're saying, we're going to work on both of these issues for you. We're going to help you with both of those. And it seems to me that's the answer. And that's what Housing First is talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And that puts it all together, because these folks need those first initial things right there at their doorsteps to help them. And like I say, if there's a doctor's appointment they need to, we have people, these various programs that have been around for a long time, they're available to pick them up and take them to those things. So everybody can get remote services, but most of the services are brought right here, so they can walk across the campus here and talk to the folks.
Just going back to the city council and the county supervisors, you must have total buy-in by them. I mean, it's really difficult many times to get them. Most city councils I have experience with are saying, they're transients, let's get them out of here. And that's obviously failed for years and years and years. You must have quite a bit of buy-in.
Let me back up a little bit and just say, our county administrator, he was the one that kind of knew he had to start working on this, and he's an old cop. So he said even he had the old cop mentality, get him out of here, but he goes, he had to stop that. He had to back off a little bit and rethink about this. So he kind of came forward and then talked to the board members, and the board came in full supporting it. And this is about a $200,000, up to $200,000 investment that we had. But those costs are going backwards for us, because we're reaching out to the community and say, can you sponsor a building? We had different organizations sponsor individual, about $3,300 for each of these little tough sheds. And they've actually sponsored them and paid for them. So even though we had that $200,000 cost, they've come down. They were going backwards a little bit with those costs coming in.
Actual costs, if you're talking about the other organizations that have helped come in here, like putting insulation, putting the fans in,
right.
All of that is given to the
most of that. Sometimes we help out with purchasing. It's like we're looking at flooring in there because right now it's a plywood floor. But we talked about let's get some linoleum in there, give it a feeling of home. Let's make sure that they're coverings on the windows for privacy. Those are all things that are important to folks, right? What kind of shelves do they need? All these things we kind of added on a little bit. So that's some of the county costs involved. We knew there'd be costs. We have kind of a fun going forward. And then the merchants even came out here and said, you know what, it looks great. Well, let's give it a homey look. Let's make sure they're all different colors. Let's put some artificial grass and some a stepping area for a porch out there. It made a huge difference. It gives it that more feel of, this is my place. I can put my chair out in front and sit there in front of my place for a while. So people have their individual spots, or different colors, or different feels to them.
And 100% occupancy right now?
Right now, like I say, we're at 38 for 40 units. But at the same time, we have a waiting list. So we're just kind of, we leave that 1 or 2 gap because we need to start rotating people in and out.
One of the things I see here, which is really important, is what you're trying to do is make people feel home. Mm-hmm. And that's really important. Rather than just a shed people are living in, you've actually taken the time to make people feel that they have, like you say, it's imitation grass, but it's still a place where it's just you're not working on gravel and it's just a plain old shed. You've actually created an atmosphere saying we care, and that's really important.
Right. It had to be something that could be at least cleaned up, maintained on a regular basis, but it had to have that feel of individuality. People, you have some person parks their bike here. That's great. And there's a secure gate around here. People thought, oh, you're putting up a gate to keep us in. No, the gates are unlocked. The gates to protect the investment that the county put forward. I'm looking around here and I see that people have their little lanterns out front. They're solar lanterns. They charge during the day, they could use them during the night, and they could plug their cell phones in. So there are little things that we had to think that we never would have thought of. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you one other thing we have here is we have a camp host. Mm-hmm. You know, here we have a trailer here. She has her hookups, and she's here. She's the one that if there's a problem, she calls. If the power goes out somewhere, she calls. You know, if something happens, she calls. And that way, and if they have questions, they come to her and they ask her, and she looks for the answer.
So the camp host is a community member, someone that lives here?
We made an arrangement with, gave her a place to stay, so she doesn't have to rent an apartment or something like that. She can stay here if she does her services, and she's been great.
There's a lot of people here. If you have 40 people, have you had any discussions about actually creating a board of the homeless or formerly homeless to actually help to make decisions as to how the camp is run?
Everything we've done, we actually had not just meetings with our group, and this is a large group of our homeless advocate consultant, and we had different departments that are like Public Works and all that, and then we also had all the different organizations, the Hands of Hope, the Salvation Army, the Habitat for Humanity, in these rooms on a regular basis every 2 or 3 weeks, talking how we do this, what we do this, and they've been correcting us on how we've been moving forward. And then we've actually had meetings with the mayors and representatives of the homeless encampments themselves, sitting down with them saying, here, we're looking at this, what about this? Sometimes they're like, no, we're not doing that. Other times, and it took a long time to warm up. Right where we're standing right now, there was a ribbon cutting right across here on about the 12th of July. They stretched the ribbon in the middle. The person that cut it was the homeless mayor for one of our homeless encampments here, and she's hoping someday to be a part of it. She's not yet, but she was not really happy with it at first. We started working more and more and actually incorporating some of her ideas. And now she's totally supporting it and encouraging her folks to look into it.
Have you had to ask anyone to leave, Russ?
Not so far. We have had, of course, issues. Oh, incidents, exactly.
But you've worked through?
So far, it's so good, and that's a good thing. And there are people that are on the cusp right now.
Do you think some of that might have had to do? I mean, the mission's been here for 40 years. You know, some people have a preconceived notion or some issues that they face. Did you have an issue where maybe they felt like this was just an extension of the mission, and there was some communication that you needed to do, or how did that all work out?
Certainly, there's been communication all along. Mm-hmm. We've missed some of those preconceived notions, and that's going to happen. Yeah. The mission has been extremely a part of this. Like I say, we have meals that are supplied. 2 of them are in the mission every day. One is meals brought here by the Salvation Army every day. People have a sense they're being fed, they're being comfortable. It's scary. We don't want to be too comfortable because they have to move. They have to think about moving on.
So do they still have that? You have to hear prayer before you get fed over at the mission?
If they go over there, yes, absolutely. If they're over there, they have to partake in their faith-based operation, and they've been great about it. They talk very openly. They bring their faith into our meetings, and that's fine.
Another quick one. I made a movie traveling to different communities that have tiny homes and part of the community. And one of the things we discovered is that when you create a board made up of the homeless, the community works better than if not, because they actually have that buy-in, and they actually help to solve the problems you're talking about, those incidents, better than people from the outside trying to solve them, because there's still that resentment and feeling that they haven't been here for me before, why are they here for me now? So I think it really helps to have that input from the homeless community.
I think you're right. It probably would be a good idea to not to formalize something.
Yes.
Formalize like that. But you're seeing it right now. We're sitting across the campus from something that's happening right now like that. There are weekly meetings where they sit down and find out what are you folks facing, what's going on, how can we help you to be more comfortable here. They're trying to get at least their input on how do we make adjustments. We're not going to give in all the time. I think that's important because the hardest thing for these folks to realize is that there is structure to life if you're going to be living in a community somewhere, and that there are curfews in a sense that you get quiet after 10 o'clock at night. You don't do things outside, or you respect your neighbors and you get along with your neighbors. So these things are happening.
What are some of the things they brought forward that you've implemented, and what are some of the things they've asked for that you didn't feel you could do?
I can't speak for all the things that we have. Like some people want to stay here longer. And we've kept a firm rule on that. No, because here we are only 45 days into it, and you want to stay past 80. Okay, you're not thinking in terms of how you can get out of here. You're thinking how you can stay, and we can't have that. It doesn't help them, and frankly, we have a responsibility for those that are helping to fund this. That we have to make sure that we have a goal, and most of the people embrace that. Most of the people are really trying. I was impressed with the people that are going out and doing job interviews, and we're talking to more and more businesses outside of this compound in terms of talking to them about how can we. Will you be open to hiring, perhaps on a part-time basis, at least something to get them working? And more businesses are now willing to do that.